Good day, this is Jürgen Steinmetz reporting for eTurbo News in Honolulu, Hawaii. Please listen in on the live stream for Brand USA today, outlining a new path for relaunching tourism to the United States. Enjoy.
To develop our recovery program, we want to make sure that you are all aware of the importance of reassuring wary tourists that it's safe to travel in the USA. We are going to share the priorities in terms of countries that are going to be earliest to return to international travel. And then Karen Grunberg is going to share opportunities for you to take advantage of the momentum in those countries that are getting to travel very soon. Before we get into that though, I want to say a thank you to Isabel Hill, who will be sharing a pre-recorded segment on the state of the state. So thanks again to Isabel Hill, Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary and Director of the National Travel and Tourism Office. Brian, if you can play the video.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever in the world you may be. It's a pleasure to participate in today's Brand USA's webinar on international travel and consumer sentiment. I don't need to tell you what challenging times we're living through, but what I want to share with you is our perspective on where we are today and our thoughts on the future. While the industry has been disproportionately affected by COVID-19 health measures, the rollout of vaccines is changing the risk equation for travelers and communities. Vaccines are a key part of the answer to safely opening travel. As of May 9th, nearly 260 million doses had been administered. More than 152 million people have received at least one dose in the United States, and nearly 58% of the United States adult population is fully vaccinated. Meanwhile, as of May 5th, the 7-day moving average of new COVID-19 cases in the United States declined 13% compared with the previous 7-day average, and nearly 82% from the highest peak on January the 8th. As a result, we are seeing destinations across the country begin to reopen. California Governor Gavin Newsom is hopeful that if the state continues on its current path of getting residents vaccinated for COVID-19, they can fully reopen on June 15th and do away with their pandemic-era color-coded tier system for establishing which businesses can be open and under what conditions. The California Department of Public Health guidance for travelers includes testing and self-quarantine and following CDC health guidelines. Florida currently has no travel restrictions in place, although the Florida Department of Health says that residents and visitors are advised to wear face coverings if social distancing is not possible. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced a major reopening on May 19, at which point restaurants, museums, theaters, and retail outlets can be allowed to reopen at capacity. The news came as New York closed in on administering at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccine for half of its residents. Governor Cuomo worked with Connecticut and New Jersey to roll out a regionally coordinated plan, and those states will drop capacity restrictions on the same day. The states will still require adherence to the CDC's 6-foot distancing rule unless businesses can prove that people are gathering or vaccinated. And my community of Washington, D.C. is on the path to reopening as well. The District of Columbia issued updated travel requirements for anyone traveling into Washington, D.C. The testing requirement is waived if an individual has been fully vaccinated and does not have any COVID-19 symptoms. The requirement is also waived for those who have tested positive for COVID-19 within the last 90 days and don't have symptoms. Other states and cities are making reopening decisions and changing levels of restriction and health guidance for residents and travelers. And as you can see from these examples, much like the member states of the European Union, destinations in the United States are responding to conditions on the ground in keeping with their judgment on how to best move forward as these conditions evolve. It appears that the combination of an overall decrease in COVID-19 cases in the US, combined with the widespread distribution of vaccines, along with its fiscal stimulus, has had a positive impact on travel and tourism within the United States. And isn't it great to be able to hear some good news these days? we're seeing some green shoots in our national data. Our National Travel and Tourism Office has created a COVID recovery monitor on our website that tracks key indicators for travel and tourism. This new interactive visualization tool is updated weekly and has 6 sections: COVID-19, international visitation, travel indicators, travel and trade, key economic indicators, and business and consumer sentiment. The National Travel and Tourism Office has just released another set of data visualization tools called the I-94 Visitor Arrivals Monitors. These 2 new products provide statistics and insights on key indicators for non-resident visitors to the United States at the international, overseas, and top world region levels. We are working to include country-level data in the future. These new monitors can be found on the I-94 program page at www.trade.gov I-94 Arrivals Program. Looking at these data, we see signs of encouragement. One indicator is the volume of trips taken by auto in April 2021. It's interesting to note that it was just 0.8% compared to April of 2019 before COVID hit. It's an improvement from the average of negative 17.5% during the prior 3 months. And it is the smallest decline since the COVID-19 pandemic began to significantly impact the US economy in March of 2020. The number of air passengers is going through TSA security at US airports in April of 2021 was down 41% compared to April 2019, pre-COVID. But it is a great improvement from the average of negative 55% during the previous 3 months. And again, the smallest decline since the pandemic began to significantly impact the US economy. Hotel room demand in March 2021 was 24.7% compared to March 2019, an improvement from the average of negative 30% during the prior 3 months. And again, the smallest decline since the COVID-19 pandemic began to significantly impact the US economy. In April 21st, 43.3% of American households planned on taking a vacation in the next 6 months, which is a significant improvement from 34% in February and 33% in December. And it's the highest since October's 44.9%. Total travel spending in March was 30.5% compared to March 2019. An improvement from the average decline of 40% during the prior 3 months, and also the smallest decline since the pandemic began to significantly impact the US economy. Travel spending in March totaled $69.5 billion, the highest amount since the COVID pandemic began to impact our economy in March of 2020. Travel-related leisure and hospitality employment increased by nearly 1 million during the most recent 3 months. Still, April 2021 leisure and hospitality employment remained 16.8% below the pre-COVID peak of 16.9 million employed in February of 2020. By comparison to the rest of the economy, overall April non-farm employment was down 5.5%. So we are continuing to be disproportionately affected. International inbound travel remains deeply depressed, with visitation to the United States totaling just 531,000 in February of 2021, down 86% from the prior year. In April of 2021, 43.3% of American households said they planned to vacation in the next 6 months. And that's up from 34% in February of 2021, and the highest since October of 2020. The increase in April was from Americans taking domestic trips. International intentions remained unchanged and quite low. Interestingly, Americans are expecting to take more trips by airplane in the next 6 months compared to their intentions during the past year. On average, between April and February 2020 and February of 2021, 60% of vacation intentions were by auto and 37% were by airplane. But by April of 2021, vacation intentions had shifted to being 53% by auto and 44% by airplane. This is hopeful news that long-haul domestic travel is beginning to show signs of recovery for summer of 2021. So as you can see, while we appear to be turning the corner, we are not yet out of the woods. So let me touch on what the US government is doing on the economic front to assist the travel and tourism industry and mitigate the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. President Biden signed the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, a $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief package that includes federal support for the recovery of the travel and tourism industry, among others, including aid to local governments, economic development grants, funds for airports and concessionaires, as well as money for airlines and contractors in payroll support programs. Also, the CARES Act and the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Acts of 2021 provided assistance for workers and businesses and is helping to preserve jobs for American industries. Specific programs include the Paycheck Protection Program, employee retention credits, payroll tax deferral, economic security, economic injury disaster loans, shuttered venue operator grants, and economic development grants to states and communities. The administration has also been working hard to ensure equitable relief to hard-hit small businesses and has made progress. For instance, the share of funding from the Payroll Protection Program going to small businesses with fewer than 10 employees increased nearly 60%, and the share of funding going to small businesses in rural areas went up nearly 30%. And this is good because rural areas have been especially attractive to consumers during the pandemic, but businesses in those areas have been especially vulnerable to closing. In addition, the Shuttered Venue Operators Program is now taking applicants. This SBA program will provide more than $16 billion in grants to shuttered venues, which will mean more places for visitors to go and the rescue of many of America's entertainment locations. These programs have been critical in supporting businesses and protecting the ecosystem of travel and tourism related businesses that provide the experiences across the United States that both domestic and international visitors seek. Recently, the Economic Development Administration was awarded $3 billion in grant funding in the American Rescue Plan Act. $750 million of that is specifically for communities affected by travel and tourism losses. The Travel and Tourism Advisory Board responded to Secretary Raimondo's request to identify leisure and business projects that would be the most impactful in assisting states and communities that have suffered economic injury related to the travel, tourism, and outdoor recreation industries. The Economic Development Administration is finalizing their program design and will issue a notice of funding opportunities in the weeks to come. The Travel and Tourism Advisory Board has consistently emphasized the importance of contactless travel for the United States, and this is even more important today. Customs and Border Protection has been working with airlines and airports throughout the pandemic to reduce the number of physical touch points throughout the travel continuum by accelerating the use of available technology. Facial comparison technology for entry is now deployed at 43 airports, and biometric exit is deployed at 20 airports in the United States. Biometric facial comparison service is also available for pedestrian crossings at the land border at 41 locations. As conditions in the United States and other countries evolve, so do CDC guidance and entry requirements. If traveling internationally, you must get a COVID-19 test no more than 3 days before you return by air to the United States. You are required to show a negative COVID-19 test result or documentation of recovery from COVID-19 before boarding a flight to the United States. And as we know, even with a vaccine, travelers can be asymptomatic and could risk infecting others. It is important to note that the CDC recommends that even fully vaccinated travelers get tested 3 to 5 days after travel. Travelers not fully vaccinated should also get tested 3 to 5 days after travel and stay home or otherwise self-quarantine for 7 days. I would encourage you to include the CDC's website in your list of resources for trip planning, which is www.cdc.gov, Coronavirus 2019. I would also refer you to the Department of Transportation website, a valuable web resource for air travelers at www.flyhealthy.gov/flyhealthy. As you have just heard, the U.S. government is hard at work doing what we can to address the underlying health crisis, making the country safe for residents and attractive to visitors. We are seeing some destinations open up, and as expected, we are seeing the first return of domestic travel. And while I cannot predict when we will be able to safely lift international travel restrictions, what I can say is that we are making real progress in the right direction. Consular Affairs has begun to take visa applications for students for the fall semester, even in countries from which travel to the United States is restricted at the current time. I want to thank you and Brand USA for your continued engagement and your patience and hard work as we all manage these historic challenges toward a brighter future. I'm Isabel Hill, the Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary for Travel and Tourism at the Department of Commerce, and I look forward to seeing you in person.
Okay, see if I can get this back. Okay. Thank you very much, Isabel, for sharing that information. It is indeed positive news to hear about all the changes in domestic travel. And what we're going to do next is give you our perspective on international travel, as I mentioned, to help you make your travel plans and marketing plans. Before I get into this, though, I did notice a couple questions, one on the website address and another that the video may have cut out for someone. What I want to let you know is that we are going to be making this entire presentation, along with Isabel's recording, available on our corporate website after the meeting. So if by some chance you missed out on anything, it will be available to you in its entirety a little bit later this afternoon. So the next segment of this webinar is going to be market intelligence and then marketing insights in terms of which of the countries that we focus on will be returning to travel first. What consumers are saying. What Brand USA has done is taken a look and aggregated research from across the industry to create some insights that we are using to plug into our recovery campaign. And the first one, which is indeed good news, is that international travel is a high budget priority for travelers all over the globe. And what they're hoping for, and you'll hear that word hope a lot because plans are still a little bit up in the air for many markets, all markets, that almost 50% of respondents expect to take more international trips this year compared to last. And when I say international, and you'll hear Rosina say this a little bit later, international is international. It is not necessarily United States targeted. It is truly the world of international travel destinations. 41% expect to spend more on their international trips. So we know the spirit is willing, and then when the borders open, we will see pent-up demand. Also, travelers want to get back to the USA soon. And so again, we're showing you these numbers knowing that 2021 is still a little bit of a conundrum, but people want to come back to the United States as soon as they can. Consumers are so looking forward to traveling, and I think this is a very interesting point, that they're willing to give up social media for a month to come to the United States, and that's 64% of respondents. 87% agree that having a trip planned in the future gives them something to look forward to. And this is a fact that we have seen time and again, that people enjoy travel planning almost as much as they enjoy travel itself. 76% of respondents are creating their destination wish list for future travel, even though they know that they may not be able to travel yet. And 56% are willing to book a trip now, even if they have to cancel in the future. So these are all very positive things to express about the state of travel. In addition, and I think that everyone on this webinar knows, planning future travel makes consumers feel excited, happy, and hopeful. And even though Brand USA's plans include transactional elements, inspiration is still the name of the game while people are stuck at home travel planning. We talk a lot at Brand USA about connections. Somehow or another that came up as a conversation early on in the pandemic, and we've revisited this phrase over and over again. So when I was looking at the American Express global travel survey that they released in April, I thought that these facts were really interesting. Consumers want to travel to make connections with friends and loved ones. And I realize these three graphics are a little bit hard to see, but the points I'll call out are people want to travel to visit the loved ones that they couldn't see in 2020. That seems so obvious, but I think it's important to call out that people miss their friends and families. People want to travel to enjoy a romantic getaway with their spouse. Even if you have been stuck for the last 14 months with your spouse in a small enclosed space, it is really important for you to get out and experience the world with your significant other, so that you can feel like you are connecting with the world again. And then finally, and this is a topic you're going to see over and over again in the upcoming slides, people want to travel to take a vacation with their family in 2021, and especially in the Brand USA survey information, focus on children who have really missed out over the last 14 months is a very high priority for parents. A couple things that I think we have to make sure that we call out. According to TripAdvisor, the new consumer mindset, which emerged early on in the pandemic but is still with us, is that people are concerned about personal and health and safety. And that's really important when travel planning. Even though people are vaccinated, they are still very concerned that the places they visit, that they are not necessarily entering into crowded situations, that the hotels, that the airlines are all meeting safety standards, because that is critically important, even as we see vaccine cases decline. Something else that I thought was really very interesting is that at the same time that people need new information, they want this information to be unbiased and trustworthy. And when you look at where folks go for this information, over the course of the pandemic, it has shifted. So since the pandemic, according to the Edelman Trust Barometer, businesses have emerged as more trustworthy than other institutions like government that may have a bias or may have a reason for positioning information in a certain way. So it's very important that as you put out information, you are making sure that it is trustworthy and it is reliable. One of the sources that has emerged as a reliable source for travel inspiration are key opinion leaders, KOLs, and online video content. So I know that this probably is very hard to see, this little chart, but across the last 3 years, these are the only two channels of communication, two platforms that have increased in trustworthiness. Excuse me. So as Brand USA is putting together its plan, you can be sure that influencers and online video are front and center. Finally, excuse me, consumers are becoming conscious travelers. And so some of the things that Isabel talked about, you're going to see here. Focus on small local businesses while traveling is really important. Many people are passionate about traveling to destinations to help boost the local economy. 69% are interested in visiting lesser known destinations, which has as much to do with staying away from crowded places as it does with trying to see places they haven't seen before and experiencing different cultures. And 69% want to choose an airline or hotel that values diversity and inclusion. For me, and for the work that we do at Brand USA, these are all very positive pieces of information that we will build into our campaigns. And I wanted to make sure that you saw these too, because they are what you'll see in our work over the next couple weeks. So finally, before I hand this off to Rosina, in the year ahead, travel will play an increasingly critical role in strengthening connections, broadening horizons, and bridging divides. That's thanks to Expedia Group, who put that together. Travelers around the world want to travel internationally and are demonstrating progressively more optimism about booking their trips. And the international markets will come back online, but at different paces, depending on infection rates, vaccine availability, and entry and exit policies. So with that, I'm going to hand this off to Rosina Barba-Stefano, Director of Consumer Research at Brand USA, who's going to give you a peek into how we're seeing the markets and their return to travel. Take it away, Rosina.
Thank you, Tracy. Hello, everyone. I will share with you some results of our latest polls and talk about our gating criteria. Next slide. First, let's talk about those requirements that people express need to be in place for them to feel safe to travel overseas. As you can see in the footnote, this is about all our 11 markets, but for Canada and Mexico, it's international travel. And I'm also going to talk to you about those requirements that they see as deterrents. Among the general population across the 11 markets that we are tracking, the top 3 requirements are low number of COVID cases in the destination, air passengers meeting general health requirements and screening like wearing masks and the temperature checks, as well as being vaccinated. This varies slightly among potential travelers. Those are the ones that I'm calling, that are saying that they're planning on taking a trip in the next 12 months. For them, the most important factor is the air passenger requirements, followed by COVID vaccine and social distancing. This is consistent across all those 11 markets. On the other side, the most significant deterrent that both the general population and those potential travelers keep pointing out are quarantine requirements, either for 14 days, which is the usual, or even for shorter period of time with a negative test results, as well as submitting to and paying for the COVID test before departing or returning flights. This has remained consistent since we started asking about it back in September. Next slide. Now, today we're going to have a different approach than what you might have seen in our past research webinars. As Tracy mentioned, this time we're going to be talking only about the markets we expect to rebound faster in terms of travel to the US. And for this reason, we are including them as part of our phase 1 of our recovery strategy. Those are Canada and Mexico, mainly on the assumption of proximity, being our neighbors, and their familiarity with our market, as well as UK and Germany, based on the assumption of familiarity. However, it is important to point out that this could change. We keep monitoring all our 11 markets based on the gating criteria that I will talk about shortly. But next slide. Let's start with the UK. Based on the latest monthly polls, we're seeing they're planning on taking an international trip. Again, as Tracy mentioned, this refers to international trips, not necessarily to the US. And again, what we're seeing for them is late summer, early fall planning, and then picking a little bit up again at the end of Q1 of next year. Regarding their personal considerations when selecting a destination in terms of an international destination, again, across the board is resting and relaxing. The UK is not unique in this. And this is very similar to what we had seen before the pandemic. However, as Tracy pointed out earlier, engaging the kids in activities specialized for them keeps popping up way more than we had seen, and even compared to 2019 levels. For that reason, we're expecting to see this to play an important role as travel picks up. Next slide. Now this is a snapshot of our gating criteria, which some of you might be familiar already, and you might have seen it already, but if not, you can find it on our corporate website. This has been set up on 5 factors. One of them is the US government entry policy that for here, for the UK, you see as a strict restriction for now. Then the number of COVID daily cases, our target here is to see 3 months of daily average new cases below the 500, or 3 consecutive months of less than 50% month-over-month growth. Using Sabre data, the graph in the bottom, we're looking at scheduled seat capacity of inbound flights to the US. Here, the target for our gating criteria is 3 consecutive months of growth, over 15% month-over-month. On the Google trend, what we're using is an index of flight as a search topic, meaning everything that is aggregating under flights. The target here as well is 3 consecutive months of growth of at least 15% on a month-by-month basis. And finally, the chart on the right at the bottom is their intent to take an international leisure trip in the next 12 months. This is based on our monthly polls. In each market, we survey 1,000 people of the general population, and the target of this factor is 3 consecutive months of over 10% month-over-month growth. When you see here for the UK recoveries, we're seeing improvements, but certainly not meeting the targets. The targets that we have set internally at Brand USA are designed to help us determine when recovery is sufficient in these markets for us to resume our marketing activities. Next. Now let me talk to you about Germany. This market is showing some international travel planning peaks, same as the UK, late summer, early fall. However, more so than the Germans, than the UK, this might mean regional international travel more than long haul necessarily, which means that they're going to be staying most likely during the summertime within Europe when it's allowed for them. Regarding the personal consideration, just like the UK, the number 1 consideration is resting and relaxing. Different to the British, Germans are valuing more connecting with nature. Most likely, probably, is just using the outdoors as part of a safety measure as well. Next slide. Based on our gating criteria, COVID cases are still on the red side. The US entry policy is still on the restricted restrictions. But we're seeing less fluctuation on the air capacity, which is meaning what the airlines are offering. Just like the UK, we're not meeting yet those targets, but I think we're seeing some green on the charts that every time we see them makes us look on the positive side. Next slide. Now Mexico. The Mexicans' intent to travel is skewing more towards the end of this year, with the smaller peaks during the summer. Again, this is international travel, which mainly would probably mean travel to the US, but not necessarily or exclusive to us. Same as the European markets, the main reason for them is selecting a destination is being able to relax. Next slide. Yes, our US policy is on a moderate restriction. COVID daily average monthly over month growth is as early of this week is on the green side. For us, it's on the positive side. The Google search flight is still on the red side, but the gap between the target bar and the actual is narrowing down a bit, same as the air capacity. However, this needs to be cleared out. It's airline offering, and it's not necessarily saying that it's all Mexican travel to the US, whereas the consumer intent is still fluctuating a bit. Next slide. Finally, let me talk about Canada as the forward market that we're focusing on primarily as part of the recovery. In terms of where they're planning, different than the other 4 markets. They're really pushing it towards the end of Q1 of next year. Again, no surprise here due to government restrictions on their side and lockdown measures that are currently in effect. This again might change in the next pulse that we have. Same with the other 3 markets. Resting is the #1 reason for selecting an international destination. Next slide. Looking at the gating criteria, same as Mexico, the travel restrictions are moderate. These are extended until May 21st. The number of COVID cases on a day-by-day basis has gone up based on our target criteria. All the other as well, and all the other factors are still in the red. We're expecting this to start improving as the pace of the vaccine rollouts in Canada speed up. Next slide. The information covered for this 4 markets will also be available for the other 7 markets that we track, and they will be available in the full deck that would be later available on the corporate website. And to wrap up, based on what I covered, I want to leave you with 3 key takeaways. There's an pent-up demand. International traveling planning most likely is going to start taking place late summer, early fall of this year. It might be to us, but at least it's going to be international. Based on the assumption of proximity and familiarity, we are expecting the travel to the US to be first come back from Canada, Mexico, UK, and Germany. And for this reason, we're including these markets as part of our phase 1 recovery plan. However, again, this could change as things keep evolving. And after seeing consistently for several months now, we're expecting traveling with kids to play a big role as travel picks up. As we keep seeing that engaging the kids in the activities for them keeps being over-indexing compared to what we had seen in 2019. And with this, I want to handle it off to Karen to talk about our programs.
Thank you, Rosina. That's always interesting information, and that helps guide us how we work with the partners in the US in helping them with recovery, but also help extend whatever dollars they may have in marketing internationally in the coming years. So there's 3 areas of focus that we're going to talk about, and we're going to talk with programs that are underway right now, which we are continuing to educate the travel trade. And throughout the year, we have been evolving how we do this because the times are changing. And we've continued some of the programs that we always have been successful with, such as the USA Discovery Program. Earlier this year, we launched the Global Marketplace with great success, which has been a new way for us to work with the travel trade. And based on requests from our partners, we'll talk about the new video trainings that we are going to be rolling out very shortly. We align all of our marketing with what we're doing with the consumer team. So the next phase is really the inspiring people, telling people we are ready, creating content that instills confidence in the travelers as they're considering to travel. So we have a few new programs, and we will continue to push out the programs we've always used for inspiration, such as our 2020 Global Inspiration Program, updating our website and pushing out media support behind that. And then what's most key, where we've made a number of significant changes for 2021 and 22, is really a stronger focus on activation. We want to create demand through relevant content and relevant stories that will lead to bookings across multiple platforms and multiple countries as soon as the time is ready. Next slide. So as we look at the travel trade and how we've extended our programs, we know that it is imperative that we reach all of our travel trade multiple times with different knowledge that is needed when it's needed. And the way our travel trade is consuming their media and their learning has also changed throughout the year. The trade needs to be ready with reliable content that helps them to build the consumer confidence that the USA is ready. And then they also have seen, as we saw in our research today, there's strong interest in traveling beyond the gateways and in supporting local business. So we want to make that information available to our tour operators and travel agents to help sell new product. And as you all know, because we're living it every day, there are a multitude of virtual platforms, and those platforms require new content and new tools. And at the request of our partners, we have developed some tools that I'm going to share with you on the next slide. The number one new tool right now is our Destination 101 customized training videos that the partners who work with us in the US can continue to utilize content that we have already developed and help us create some great training videos that we can use on a variety of platforms, including our USA Discovery platform and the global marketplace. Most of our US partners do work with us on the USA Discovery channel, and this year, more than ever, it has been so important. We have completed 93,000 badges and have had more than 70,000 travel agents participate in this program. So adding new content, refreshing your content, adding these training videos will be a great service. And then we have the global marketplace, and we continue to update that with new content that is relevant for the tour operators and for the consumer. Right now, we're in the process of bringing our partners back in for phase 2 of the global marketplace, and we will see a series of events and activities throughout the next year. We're hosting a webinar for participating partners tomorrow with more details. What I also want to mention is you have our Brand USA team, you also have our team at Miles, all available to go into more details on these programs. Hopefully we've talked to many of you already. Next slide, please. Then destination readiness. Aligned with our consumer strategy, we have looked at where we need to continue to develop programs, and those include influencers, video social cuts, using the content we already have created over the last few years, and then distributing that to let people know about the wide open spaces and the safety. And then we will be creating a new type of inspiration program. It's a digital first approach. It will have measurable results. It will launch next February after we're done with distribution, the last global inspiration program. And we go on to the next slide. And the reason for this is the consumers need us to help remind them that the destinations are ready to safely welcome visitors. And these are very affordable tools that we have developed to get that message out there. As we see in our research, both influencers and online video are top source of a trusted content, which is why we're creating a cooperative plan to work with all of our partners on influencers. Also, with pent-up demand, we need to be out there, create awareness for U.S. destinations as premier choices for people to consider and book their travel. And the content that we've created to engage with our partners on is a way to do that in bulk and make it very affordable. We know our partners' resources are limited for producing new content, so we have found ways to repurpose a lot of the content we have created to return to international markets so we can influence the decisions properly when the timing is right. Next slide. When it comes to activation, which the majority of the partners who work with us in the US and our travel trade throughout the world want, is going to be a key focus on everything we do. But we have to do that by both inspiring people to consider the US and then follow up with an activation campaign. In our board meeting next week, you'll have more details of where we are going from a consumer standpoint on our activation campaign. But as both Rosina and Tracy shared, many markets are demonstrating great optimism for international travel. And we need to make sure that we are using our marketing dollars on the markets that will cover first and generate bookings quickly. We know that the consumers feel happy and hopeful when they get to plan their trips. So telling the stories and making it easily possible to book your travel is critically important into the strategy that we have put forth with our partner cooperative programmings. And then, of course, stimulating interest. And what's always important, and more important than ever, is we have to determine low cost, high value opportunities that we can provide with measurable results for each of the partners that we include in our campaigns. We go on to the next slide. And so doing that, we've launched a series of new programs. In addition to our multi-channel, which is our most popular and successful booking program we've had out there, we are adding several other activation programs for 2021 and 2022. We have been creating airline partnerships. We have a program with Air Canada. We have created tour operator co-ops with the list that's listed: BA Holidays, Trail Finders, Canusa, Price Travel. We have 4 more in the works right now. And what's unique about these cooperative programs for us and the partners that we engage with is that 100% of the dollars that we put into this program are really for marketing externally. And we have a commitment from all of these tour operators that they will give us the measurable results and KPIs we identify, including booking information, which for many of our partners, when they work on a one-to-one basis, are challenged at getting that type of information. We continue to work with our affinity partners, which is a great way and a quick way to get back into market when the borders open. Our 3 partners listed here have been really supportive of adding additional value and opportunities with us for a quick relaunch and to extend our own dollars as far as we can. And then we also work with media partners within various countries, and we have these opportunities available for us to cooperate and collaborate with our partners and really push out individual messaging around coming to the USA. We also have several programs in the UK. We are actually renegotiating the assets right now so we can move them more quickly into market. And finally, our consumer recovery program, which will be again talked about in a little more detail at our next board meeting. There'll be opportunities for partners to work with us in ways that we have not done in our consumer programs, from content development and also retargeting opportunities in cooperation with the tour operators and OTAs that we will be partnering with on a consumer standpoint. So in closing, I just want to say that we are ready and to welcome the return of the international visitor. We will continue to monitor the market based on the criteria to resume our marketing activities effectively, adjust the prioritization of the countries based on market conditions and consumer intent. And to that point, for our partners, we are constantly looking at the dates and keeping you informed of changes of launch dates or presumed launch dates for existing campaigns, but we're getting ready for that. And we understand there's still a lot of uncertainty, but we will continue to provide you the advice, the opportunities, and the insights and the support to make sure we are marketing in the right markets at the right time for the right partners with the right messaging. So go on to the next slide. Before we open this up for questions, I'll turn it back to Tracy.
Thanks so much, Karen, and thanks, Rosina, and thanks to Isabel. What I want to do is bring you up to speed on a couple dates that are upcoming that you and the listening audience might be interested in. On May 19th is our quarterly board meeting. And if you're interested in hearing a little bit more about what Brand USA is building from a recovery perspective, we'll be sharing our campaign strategy, some very, very early on creative, and you'll hear a little bit more there. So I'd like to entice you to join. On May 25th, we have our multicultural strategy webinar, so you can learn how to participate in this program. And then our next board meeting is on July 20th. And at that point, the world will have spun quite a few times between now and then, and we will be providing you updates on our take on market reopening. So before that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I can't see the questions that are coming in without looking at the questions, and I know we've got quite a few. So let me look and see. A couple of the questions have to do again with releasing the website information that Isabel shared. That is going to be available on our website when we post this this information. Data on the importance of U.S. destinations maintaining or supporting safety and security policies. You know, one of the things that I think is really critically important, and I know that Chris has mentioned over and over again in various presentations and interviews, is the importance of building confidence. And confidence comes in a lot of different forms. It's knowing what to expect before you leave your home. It's making sure that you've got clear and trustworthy information about the safety standards and the policies that are in place for the USA and for your destination. And all of that is going to be built into our campaign from a messaging standpoint. And I would encourage Jack, I guess you're asking that question, to build that into your own messaging. Also on Brand USA, we do have a page on our consumer website that lists links to all of the states and their policies. That's updated by the states, but that is internationally available to everyone that follows us on websites. What is the rationale for focusing on familiarity for countries to return to recovery? So that's a really good question. I think there are two things that we'll be focusing on from a messaging standpoint. Part one is for those markets that are ready to return, low-hanging fruit, as it were, our engagement framework, which we've shared previously, and again, we'll share more information on during our board meeting, has three elements to it. The first comms task, that first phase of what we're calling re-entry recovery, is proving we're ready, making sure the world knows that the United States is open for international travel and we're ready for those international travelers. The second phase, which focuses on welcoming the world back, is a combination of high-level inspiration through activation and then handing off to our third phase, which is to entice and convert. So your question, anonymous attendee, is quite apt, and we will be working along these three. So it's not just our familiarity markets, it's also focusing on inspiration across the globe. But for the purposes of today, we wanted you to understand where we were going to be focusing on for the near term from that three-phase reentry campaign. Another question on the economic considerations like cost of travel goods pending recession or recession-like conditions, as well as job losses. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump into this, but I think that the conversations that I've had and some of the survey questions that Rosina fielded over the last month shows that in certain markets there is a concern that people may not have the same dollars available to them to travel. And that for us, Brand USA, activates what we call our proximity strategy, which is our value proposition that shows how to enjoy the USA and why this idea of proximity, which gives you more bang for your buck, your peso, your real, in one trip than you may get other places. But I do think, I don't have a strict answer to that, but I do think it's another consideration, and I think it's a good point to have raised. Karen, there is a question here on how to be a partner. Do you want to answer that one?
Absolutely. If we have not spoken with you, you can reach out to myself, Kay Grunberg at thebrandusa.com, and we can talk to you about the opportunities that we have with that we work with our partners on.
Great. Another good question, what does Brand USA view the opportunities in APAC to be? What you will see if you go and download the whole deck is our views on Australia, on Korea, on Japan, and China. all very, very important markets for the USA. And as I've mentioned in the answers to other questions, these are still critical markets. We will still be focusing on them from an inspiration standpoint. But from the research that we're getting back, the consumer surveys, these are what I'm calling our next markets, not our now markets. Can we still sign up for the global marketplace? Karen, you want to answer that one?
Absolutely. And again, whoever an anonymous attendee is, if we haven't reached out to you, I'll send you my email and we'll reach out to you right away. We would love to have you join us. We've had a number of new partners join us just this week.
Karen, another question that I think, I don't know if you want to answer this one. Is there a golf tourism component? And that's interesting. I know we've talked about this kind of very neat, not niche, I guess that's not the right word, but this kind of activation. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Certainly. Yes, we did run a cooperative golf program for a couple of years, but we were not getting enough destination interested. We do work with a few organizations and a few tour operators that focus on golf. And Kevin, happy to chat with you and show you how you can get more engaged in the programs that we do on golf with the travel trade in the marketplace.
Great. U.S. resident sentiment is an important ingredient in welcoming international tourists. I could not agree more. Destination analysts did a international travel report that actually we borrowed from for this presentation. And what they're showing is that domestic interest in and acceptance of international travel is growing. That is not to say that it has reached the level perhaps that we would hope, but people are increasingly, as they feel more confident about it, being able to move around in their own place, as they feel that their community is opening back up, that they're able to go to restaurants, that they're able to do the things that they want to do, so too does their interest in welcoming tourists. I am happy to make, actually in the link of the document, if you download it from our website, is the link to that full survey, which is many pages. And so if you want more details from the research that we pulled, you'll find it there. Okay, another anonymous one that Chris, perhaps, do you want to answer about marketing intent and lowering restrictions in the USA?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks to Isabel and the team for all they brought forward today. Certainly our partnership with the federal government through the 9 federal agencies that we have ongoing relationships with help inform those conversations. But as far as the advocacy for that, the majority of that is channeled and led by U.S. Travel as the lead advocacy voice in Washington, D.C. And certainly they've done a great job and have the priorities in the right spot as it relates to the urgency of when it's the right time of opening borders and welcoming international visitors back.
Thank you, Chris. I'm looking to see, so we have another golf tourism component. How can we work with Brand USA in some of the international countries that Brand USA is focusing currently? Karen, I would kind of throw this one your way too.
Yes, we have a variety of programs and opportunities, and we do customized marketing opportunities working with our partners. It's just, again, have a conversation with us. If you do not have a brand representative, if you do not currently have someone from Brand USA working with you or from our Miles team, I encourage you just to send me a note and we'll make sure that we reach out to you. We are always looking at extending our partner outreach and inclusion into our programs.
Thank you very much, Karen. And then finally, I think we're at time, but there's one more question on inclusivity and diversity. And as you will hear again, if you join our upcoming board meeting on the 19th or our multicultural strategy webinar on the 25th, everything that Brand USA does embraces diversity and inclusion. And Black-owned businesses and experiences, small businesses, cultural heritage experiences are critically important. And we want to make sure that the reopening of travel impacts those businesses in a very positive way. So if you'll join us on one of our upcoming webinars, you'll see more about how we intend to build multicultural content into everything we do. So with that, I think I will point you all in the direction of our corporate website. This recording will be available there later on today, and I'm going to suggest to our team that we make it available not only as a recording but also as a multimedia file so that people can download the document itself and click through to the link so they can see for themselves some of the research that we shared during this call. So thank you very much. This has been a great hour. We will be back to you probably in late June or early July with our next webinar update. And in the meantime, if you've got questions, please feel free to reach out to us directly. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.